particularly about today's webinar. It is so good for all those who are planning a career in either US or Canada, that they will be helped by those who are there, those who have undergone entire research process of finding out what are the formalities to enter USA or Canada and what are the business and professional opportunities. I understand that you all look senior, must have settled for many years in US and Canada, and you must have done thorough research to find out how to get into US or Canada and what are the opportunities. Now that you are settled, it is this feeling and emotion for the country that you are sharing all your experience, which will be so handy for all those young chartered accountants or young professionals who would be planning a career in US or Canada. It is very good to connect so frequently. Because of COVID, we started connecting on virtual mode, and most of the time this year, because COVID struck so suddenly, many of the programs had to be organized at short notices. But going forward, what I see in pipeline, that for future we can plan well in advance some of the activities and some of the programs, and invite all our colleagues all over the world. So although this is a program with North America and Canada, all participants from all over the world are able to take advantage of it. And let us make it a point that in future we plan in advance some of the very value-add programs and give it to our colleagues and profession back. Let me thank San Francisco and Canada chapters, British Columbia, that you have agreed to have this program, and you are here early morning to talk about topics which are so relevant for those who are still planning their career. Thank you so much for inviting, and it is great to connect with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jambusaria. It was inspiring to hear your words. Without much further ado, I would now like to invite the president of ICAI, Mr. Atul Gupta, to share his views about today's topic. Atulji, over to you.
Thank you, Nilesh. And a very good morning, good evening to all my colleagues from the different part of the world and the viewers. At the outset, as rightly mentioned by Nilesh Bhai, that we pray the Almighty for the well-being of each one of you in this COVID pandemic situation. And great to join all my colleagues who are the distinguished speakers and the panelists today, along with the moderators for having this wonderful interaction which will be there. Friends, you will agree with me that the profession which started way back in 1949, set up under the Act of Parliament, with only few hundred members and students with one head office at Delhi. Today, you will be surprised to note that not only in India, our presence are there in the 165 locations of the country, but also today the ICAI is officially available in more than 42 countries, and the members are spread in more than 100 countries of the world. So the profession which have the more than 7 mutual recognition agreements, more than 8 MOUs, and then the members are at the helm of affairs at the different part of the world based on the qualification they gain from the profession of the chartered accountant. Friends, today the profession or the country, when we are talking about, we are practically working in an environment where it is a global village. So when we have this kind of an environment, you have the delimitation of jurisdiction, meaning thereby you are complying a law practically, whether you are in India or USA, which is practically being followed at the different part of the jurisdiction. For example, the GST, which is applicable in more than 164 countries, the IFRS, which is applicable practically across the world, and then the risk management valuation, and so on. Likewise, the different way of doing business are practically making us practically a global village, and likewise the digital disruption. So as rightly mentioned by Honorable Vice President, sir, that today we are sitting in Delhi or in Mumbai, and we are speaking, addressing to our members across the world. The USA colleagues are there in the early morning. So it's all because of the technology. When the technology have the advantage, there are the challenges as well. then that your routine jobs, repetitive jobs, gradually will be outsourced to the system, and you will be more focused. You have to be more focused on the jobs which require the skepticism, the wisdom, the more technical jobs per se. So friends, when we are talking about all this, you will agree with me that when we are living in a global environment, and our profession is actually a really global profession, there are talks, there are the discussions that how we can expand our wings from one part to the another part of the world. And that's why I requested Vish Arunachalamji and all the colleagues from the San Francisco that let us have a program to discuss our colleagues, discuss our members across the world, that how they can more collaboration with the colleagues in the North America. And when we are talking about the North America, it is not only America, but includes the Canada as well. So how we can collaborate, what are the opportunities are there, what are the challenges are there, and how we have to have this kind of a networking and the collaboration, or maybe some professional opportunities at the different part of the world. It is very heartening to note that we have a very distinguished panel of speakers and the panelists today in this particular program. And I believe with their wisdom, with their guidance and their experience on that particular aspect will certainly enrich our all viewers who are there from the different part of the world, and they will be taking a lot of benefits from there. I believe that this will be a milestone which will create the more opportunities to interact. There may be some kind of I will say once the COVID is over, there I will urge the San Francisco team and the USA team to have the one-to-one meetings, networking meets, and some maybe after 6 months down the line, so that we can take this webinar to the next level of our discussion and bring the fruitful result for both the colleagues, maybe the San Francisco colleagues, maybe the Canada colleagues, or maybe the Indian colleagues. So with these words, my best wishes to Nilesh Bhai and all my colleagues here and the panelists for their, and thanks as well for sparing their valuable time for this very important webinar of the profession. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Atulji, for this inspiring words. I appreciate your and Nihalji's coming online and sharing with us these good thoughts. With this, I'd like to delve into today's topic. So friends, you must all have been following the news, and you must be aware that momentous changes are taking place all around us, especially in Northern America. The question, I'm sure, which is at the top of your mind as an Indian chartered accountant, what does this all mean for me? What are the opportunities that have come up for me? And what are the new challenges? The new presidential elections, the pandemic, the unprecedented scale of economic stimulus that has been unleashed by the United States government and as well as the Canadian government. What are the kind of opportunities does that result for you? So today's event is just as was rightly pointed out by the president and the vice president. Today's event is a part of a series of initiatives which helps you to understand and give a context to what's happening here. So let me talk about the first panel. It's going to focus on the immigration and educational pathways into North America for Indian chartered accountants. Let me begin by introducing my fellow panelists. First, we are fortunate to have with us Ms. Deepika Singh. She is an executive director of Chug LLP. She is an immigration expert in the Silicon Valley, and she has handled immigration matters across spectrum, whether it's CAs or even software companies. Then we also have with us Ms. Neera Agnihotri. She's the founder of Agnihotri Consulting in the Vancouver area in British Columbia. She's a licensed immigration expert and has tremendous experience in handling all kinds of immigration situations into Canada. And then finally, on the panel, we are lucky to have with us one of our senior colleagues, Mr. Vijay Gupta, who is the founder of the British Columbia chapter of the ICAI. He's been with the chapter since the inception. He's founded it, and he has great understanding of how Indian CAs can establish themselves in Canada. With this, I would like to begin by asking questions, but there's a disclaimer that I must say. None of us on this panel are providing any kind of professional advice. It's merely to provide you education and information. If you so decide to pursue a strategy for immigration or education, please consult licensed experts. With this, I'll turn on to Deepika. Deepika, thank you for being with us. And let me begin by asking the first question. It's a very basic question. what are the visas that an Indian chartered accountant can explore for the United States to launch their careers? Deepika.
First, Nilesh, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this wonderful panel. Well, yes, US is definitely one of the big countries where people would want to come and explore their careers. So if the goal is to work in the United States, the two main visas which someone could explore would be the H-1B and the L-1. There are some other visas as well which can be explored to perform work here, but they have limitations. But the H-1B and the L-1 are the most apt for any individual who wants to come to the United States and work. There are other visa categories as well which give you work authorization, but you have to belong to a certain countries, or you have to be a national of a certain country. There is a visa called the E3 visa, which is categorically for Australian citizens, meaning if you are a passport holder of Australia, you can explore this visa. You can come to the United States and actually work on this visa. There is another one called the H1B1, which are for the Singaporeans and the Chileans. Now, when I say national of this country, meaning that you can hold a passport for this country. You don't have to be born in this country. You just have to have a passport or be a citizen of this country. In a similar way, if you're a Canadian and a Mexican holding the passport of Canada or Mexico, you can explore the TN visa. That's another one which is another apt for working in the United States. A lot of these visa categories or a lot with any of these visa categories, you can actually get an EAD and explore work authorization in the United States. These are all temporary visas, and to file them you have to meet certain requirements. But yes, these are some of the options which you have to have visa options you have to come and work in the United States.
Thank you, Deepika. I have a question. You mentioned H-1B visa and L-1 visa. So how are they different? And what do we in India, or rather what do chartered accountants in India have to do to get one or the other?
Right. So the first requirement, so I'll go with one visa over the other, right? So first I'll talk about the H-1B. Now, what is an H-1B? For the H-1B, the main requirement is first, it is sponsored by a US entity performing work in the United States, means it's in business. It has physical presence in either any city or state in the United States, and they have to sponsor the H-1B for you. Now, the main criteria for you to obtain an H-1B is first, you have to have an offer of employment from the US entity. Second, the minimum requirement, education requirement to perform or to apply for this visa is bachelor's degree, meaning that whichever occupation you're going to perform your job duties in, the requirement for the basic is a bachelor's degree. So, the immigration attorneys can help you all evaluate it, and, they can help you tell you whether you qualify and what is a good designation. So H-1B, basically, these are the two main requirements. For the L, the requirements are a little different. Education is not really a mere requirement for the L. The most important thing for the L visa is that you have to have a US entity, again, in business practice, physical presence in the US in any city and state, and they have to have a related entity in a foreign country. It could be anywhere in the world other than US, obviously, and the relationship could be either an affiliate or a branch or a parent or a subsidiary. So the relationship has to be there between the US entity and the foreign entity. The second requirement for an L visa is that the employee who's trying to get the L visa has to have worked for the foreign entity for at least 1 year, meaning they have to have a payroll from that entity in order to kind of correspond that they have been employed with with that particular entity, foreign entity, and they meet the minimum requirement. Now, the difference between the H-1B and the Ls is that H-1B, you have a maximum period of 6 years, meaning you can obtain an H-1B for 6 years in continuation. Whereas the L1, it's divided into two categories. One is the L1A and one is the L1B. L1A is majorly for managers, executives, and functional managers. So when I say managers, means you have to be a people manager, meaning you have people reporting to you. When I say executive, means you are somebody in the organization, in the foreign entity, who's taking decisions on behalf of who's going to take decisions on behalf of the US entity. So you're on an executive level. When I say function, meaning that you're coming to the United States to actually own a function and supervise it, manage it, and so on and so forth. So L1A, you get a total of 7 years on the L1A in the United States. You have to keep filing extensions up to 7 years. For the L1B, it is more for individual contributors, meaning that you're coming independently to work in the US, meeting the basic requirement of the relationship of the foreign entity plus the 1 year employment with the overseas entity. But your United States employment is basically for an individual contribution. So for example, to give you an idea of what individual contributor would be, like, people, software engineers, when they come to the US, they're coming and performing individual work. So those are the ones who qualify for the L1B. Very specialized knowledge, very, you have technical knowledge about the process and methodologies of the entity, and that's what you're going to perform in the United States. So these are the criterias to meet the L requirement, and that is how the H and L are different for the primary beneficiary. Now, for the H1B, you can the dependents, meaning the spouses and the children, can get an H4, and for the L1s, the dependents can get an L2 visa. For the H4, there is a work authorization, which probably you can explore over the years once your green card is in process. But for the L2s, when they come to the United States, they can immediately apply for an L2 EAD authorization. So this is how both the visa categories are different.
Thank you, Deepika. I know you used the magic word green card for the first time, and I'm sure a lot of people were waiting to hear about that. But before we jump into this whole green card train, let me step back and ask you a question which a lot of people ask me. It's a simple question. They say that I am an independent chartered accountant in India. I'm not an employee of any company, or I do not expect to become an employee of a large company in India. I'm self-employed in India. I am keen to launch my professional practice in the United States. What are my options to launch my practice without having to seek an employment with a large organization or a small organization in the United States who's going to do my L1, H1, or some other visa category? How do I launch my practice? They say that, I have this B1, B2 business visa. Why can't I launch my practice on this B1, B2? It's a very basic question, but I think it's important for us to address it before we get into the green card and all those issues.
Correct. So technically, if you want to launch your practice, the only visa which will help you to do that would be an L1A. So the L1A category has the option of filing a new office L1A, meaning that you have a US, you have an India entity or a foreign entity, and you're trying to come and open an office in the US where both these entities will have a relationship. Now, the relationship could either be a branch, subsidiary, or a parent or an affiliate. Now, I won't explain what a branch or a parent or a subsidiary would be, because you all already know about it. But I will tell you all what an affiliate means, because that's a little different word here when it comes to relationship. Affiliate means that both the owners of the US entity and the India entity or the foreign entity are the same, means they hold the equal amount of shares. So if both the offices meet this requirement, the L1A is the best way to launch your office in the United States. In the long term, you have to show that you're opening a US office, you're going to establish it, you're going to have business activity, you're going to grow it, you're going to hire people. So a business plan has to be presented to USCIS along with your application to exactly tell them what your ideas are about, future of opening this office in the US. So L1A is definitely one of the best options to start your US operations. There is EB5, which obviously is a great option, but then for an EB5, it's a lot of documentation. You need assistance from a corporate lawyer, from a CPA, and an immigration attorney to work on your case. So I would recommend, if anybody wants to explore the EB5, take a good consultation before you start the process. You need to understand how this whole EB5 works. H1B is not a great idea to start a new operations or launch an office in the US, because H1B is a little more restricted to the US employer. You can't work for your own company. So there are restrictions. There is conflict of interest. So H1B is definitely not a good option. If you want to launch your practice in the US, L1A is the best option, and talk to an immigration attorney and they can guide you as to how you can explore that option. Now, B1, B2 visas are restricted. This visa category is basically was created for you to make temporary visits to the United States or for business or leisure purpose. Now, when you say B1, it's primarily for business, When you say B2, it's leisure, meaning you're coming here for vacation or, kind of leisure time, spending leisure time in the US or for medical reasons. When you say B1, you're primarily coming here for business meetings. You cannot come and work in the United States. And I very categorically tell you all, you cannot work on a B1 visa, meaning any billable work cannot be performed on a B1 visa. So if you're coming to the United States, it should primarily be for meetings, any kind of knowledge transfer. And, people usually send employees from their from their foreign entity to the US entity for knowledge transfer. So that visa can be explored for those reasons. But any billable work on a B1 visa cannot be done. If you want to come and just explore the options of opening an office in the US, that can be done on a B1 visa, but it primarily should limit to only meetings.
Great, thanks. While we're on the topic of EB5, I would just like to highlight one thing, that EB5 also involves a significant amount of investment into a commercial enterprise in the United States, $900,000, which have to remain invested for a period of at least 5 to 7 years, depending upon how much time it takes you to get to the visa situation. So right. It's not just an investment decision; it's an investment and immigration decision that people have to look at. Exactly. However, though, does EB5 have an advantage that you technically enter with a green card? So, as you know, you could be in India or wherever you are while your life is continuing and your visa is getting processed, and the day when it gets sanctioned, you simply fly in here and get your green card. So that's an advantage, but then there are costs associated with that. There's also an option I have heard of, an E2 visa, which is the treaty investor visa, which is slightly more complex, where people invest in some other countries to gain passports of those countries and use that to get work permit in the United States. So, but these are complex options. If you guys, any of your listeners or webcast viewers are evaluating it, do consult experts before you do this. Now let's jump into, without much further ado, into green card, right? Everybody wants to know, how do I get a green card? So can you talk a little bit about what is this green card? And you also use the words EAD. So how does that differ from green card?
Perfect. So the H1B, the L2 visa category and the dependents do get an EAD to work in the US. Now, for the L1s, as I said, their dependents can come into the United States and apply for an EAD and start working with any company they want in the US. But for the H4s, the dependents of the H1B, the H1B has to be in the green card process for their H4s to actually avail this option. So far, EADs are getting issued. USCIS has not rescinded the H4 EAD option. I mean, it is in talks, definitely, but so far it's been 4-5 years and people are comfortably using H4 EADs to work. Now, how do you get an H4 EAD? You have to be in the green card process. The primary beneficiary has to be in the green card process. And how do you be in the green card process? So the employment-based category of the green card allows you to go into the basically start off with the perm process, then the I-140 process, which is the immigrant visa, and then the final green card application. So if you have a perm filed 1 year prior, or you have an I-140 approved, your H4 dependent, the spouse, can apply for an H4 EAD. So that's how you get an H4 EAD. Now I'll explain a little bit about how the green card works. There are two ways of getting a green card in the United States. One is family-based and one is employment-based. Now, so if you're on an H and L, you can opt for the employment-based visa category. And if you have a US citizen, like a brother or a parent, they can actually apply for your green card as well through the family-based sponsorship program. I won't touch the family too much. It's more employment-based, so I'll talk about the employment-based. Now, for the H-1Bs, the process is that the employer who is sponsored your H-1B starts the green card process for you. So the process involves a lot of recruitment efforts, showing that you've tried to hire a lot of local US citizens, and somebody who's a green card holder or a US citizen has not been able to qualify for the job. Then the company files a labor process for you. They file a labor for you with the Department of Labor, which primarily covers that there is an opening for a permanent position in the organization, and they are sponsoring this foreign worker for this position. So that's called the labor process or the perm process. Once the perm gets certified by the Department of Labor, it moves into the second stage, which is the I-140, which is actually the immigrant visa process. So then the company sponsors you for the I-140. If the I-140 gets approved, that is your starting ticket to get a green card in the US. Now, it's important that when you file your green card application, which is the third stage, the I-140 being used is from the employer you're actually working for. So you have to make sure that the I-140 being used to file your 485 application is from the employer who's actually filed your I-140, and you have an approval from them through that, for that company. So it's important that if you are in the US on an H visa or an L visa, and you file an I-140 through an employer X, and then you move to another company, or you port to another new employer for career enhancement or whatever, you get another I-140 from the new employer. So there are 3 stages for the green card. Once you enter the US on a non-immigrant visa, which is the H or the L, make sure that your employer also helps you with getting into the green card process, because that's what is going to eventually help you to stay here long term. So you would need the green card process, and there are formalities which the employer has to take care of, and you can work with your employer on getting a green card and get into the path.
Thanks. Before I move to the Canada section of our panel, I just want to ask one final question. This is more from the student side. So, if I'm an Indian Chartered Accountant student, can I get an F1 student visa or a J1 student visa to come and study CA, CPA in the United States? And how do I, if I'm looking for a job here in the United States, what are going to be the ways in which I can get a licensed qualification, which is the CPA? So can you talk a little bit about immigration and education on that space?
Sure.
In that context?
Yeah, so how I understand is that for the CA degrees in India, you actually have to go through a certain articleship, certain amount of education, right? Now, for the United States, they recognize they want you to have a 4 years bachelor's degree back in India, or a 3-year bachelor's degree back in India. So if you want to explore the F1, you will first have to get admission in one of the universities in the United States. But when I say universities, it should not be a blacklisted university. There are a lot of blacklisted universities as well in the US. I would say go to premier schools, get to some of the accredited schools, get an admission there. They will issue you an I-20, which you would use to apply for an F1 visa. A good way of exploring universities would be that you can just, type the name of the state, and you can get any of the state universities' name on Google. And then those universities also have their course curriculums on their websites. You can run through that. You can see what are the courses they offer, and then accordingly talk to the DSO, which is the designated school officer, understand what the courses are, what the courses cover, how the fee works, and then, enroll in an education in that university, get an I-20 and apply for the F1. So studies is not restricted. You can easily explore education in the US through the F1 visa route. You can come here and study, and then eventually, move into the H-1B process through any of the employers in the US, and that will help you to get into the path of employment and green card in the United States. Now, J-1 visa is pretty much it's a visa for internship. So some of the universities in the United States offer internship. You will have to check on those universities. Not all universities have this J1 internship program. So you'll have to talk to the universities and see if they have an internship program, and you can come and do internship here, or, study here, or do an exchange visitors program. They will sponsor the J1 for you. So that's an option through the university side. The other way of getting a J1 is that you'll have to tie up with an agency here. The agency sponsors your J1, and then you come and work for the US employer. So the US employer will have to work with an agency who can help you sponsor the J1, and then the J1 is kind of stamped in India, and then you come here on a J1 visa. J1 does have a little bit of restrictions as far as residency rule and stuff, but it all depends upon how the agency is working and what they kind of include in their form filling and the DS 2019 form. That can be explored, but F1 is definitely one of the routes to enter the US and study education and employment in the US.
Thank you, Deepika, for this great landscape for immigration and education in the United States. With this, I'd like to move to Neera. Neera, are you online?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for joining us, Neera. You heard my question line with Deepika, and I faced the similar kind of questions about Canada as well. So if I'm an Indian chartered accountant or an Indian student studying chartered accountancy, how do I get a work permit to pursue a career in Canada? And then how do I get the green card equivalent or the PR card as it's called in Canada? Can you talk a little bit about that and what are the things that we should think of when we are comparing these two countries?
Yes, of course. And thank you again so much for having me here today. It's a great opportunity. And I hope to shed some light on the immigration process in Canada. So in order to come to Canada on a work permit, there are certain provisions, certain countries that are LMIA exempted. So first step is a labor market impact assessment that an employer has to provide to the employee in order for the employee to apply for a work permit. Certain exemptions, I know that we're talking to an accounting board, it does not fit into that exemption. So an LMIA is a requirement from India in order for a person to come here on a work permit. First step is the employer, again, it's kind of like the same process I was listening to Deepika as the United States. Recruitment efforts for 4 to 6 weeks. The employer applies to ESDC Canada, that's Employment Development Services Canada. Once they assess the positive or negative impact on the labor market for Canadians and permanent residents, they issue a positive or negative decision. If the employer obtains a positive decision, that enables the applicant, the worker, their employee to apply for a work permit overseas or from within Canada, depending on the situation. The person may be inside Canada or outside Canada. Assessment, of course, for accounting, you may not have the Canadian designation being outside of Canada, but that pertains to the employer stating on that ESDC contract that once my employee is here, we will help them get designated inside Canada. So the application goes into IRCC. IRCC assesses the skill set, assesses the education, assesses the work history of the applicant, opposed to what the requirements were for the LMIA, and they will either issue you a work permit or not. So that will, once a work permit is issued, it enables you to travel to Canada and resume your duties with the employer inside of Canada.
Okay, so thanks, Neera. But my question is that let's say if I'm a student right now pursuing chartered accountancy in India, can I pursue the CA course in Canada? What are my ways of doing that? What visa do I need to pursue a CA course there?
Okay, sorry, my apologies. So to pursue studies inside of Canada, you have to apply to a school which offers the course, whether it's a college or university. You have to have a letter of acceptance from that school. Once you have the letter of acceptance, you have to meet the certain criteria of your English levels, funds, etc., and you apply for a study permit for at the consulate in India. All right. So once the study permit is issued, you come into Canada, you start going to school. Alongside going to school, you're given the opportunity to work 20 hours part-time. So in Canada, we don't have visas like the US, A, B, C, D. We have a work permit, we have a study permit, we have a visitor's visa, and we have a permanent resident immigrant visa. And really, that's about it. So very, very simplified.
Yeah, I've heard that, whereas US is a long story, Canada, sometimes you suddenly hear that, here he is and he's got the work permit. So I hear what you're saying.
Yes.
So I've also heard, a question that comes up to me, and it's not so relevant for Indian chartered accountants who are currently in India, but there are people who are here on H-1B in the United States. They say that they do not have any hope that they're going to get a green card because of the wait times. And then they're looking at Canada as an option. So can an H-1B, how easy is it for an H-1B visa holder in the United States to look and get a permanent residency in Canada?
Again, being in a certain country, whether you're in Australia, India, New Zealand, Russia, or the United States, doesn't fast track, essentially, unless you're under that LMI exempt category, your entrance to Canada. The very first question that you asked that I answered, you still need a job offer from a Canadian employer. So that candidate will require an offer of employment from a Canadian employer, and they will still have to apply for the work permit in order to come and start working inside of Canada. and the employer has to follow the same rules for the LMIA. The employee still has to apply for the work permit to an IRCC office inside or outside Canada in order for them to start working. So having an H visa in the United States doesn't fast track or facilitate any sort of entry into Canada to work. You still have to follow the same rules and regulations. Unless you fall under the new treaty, the CUSMA treaty. So that's the Canada, USA, Mexico treaty, which is a job offer, LMI exempt application, but you still have to apply for the work permit. LMIA is not required in this part, at that point in time.
Okay, thanks. Any other important thing that people should consider while they're evaluating Canada? Is there anything that you would like to highlight?
With Canada at the moment, we're currently going through a pandemic. The world is going through a pandemic where immigration seems to be halted and things are very, very uncertain as to what's happening with my application. Can I apply? And coming in from the United States, due to the election, I received 10 to 40 calls a day from US clients saying that, how do we get to Canada? The uncertainty down there is very, it's unstable at the moment. They don't know where their future is, like you said. Canada has promised just very recently to uptake the immigrant category. So we have a target of 400,000 immigrants to come to Canada per year. So the target for 2021 is 100,000. 2022 is 100,000, and 2023 is 100,000. So Canada has made a promise for the economic growth, and 60% of those immigrants that will be coming to Canada will be skilled workers. Another option is if you're on a work permit is not the only route to come into Canada. You may qualify under the express entry, under the federal skilled worker category. And it's a point-driven platform. In the FSW, Federal Skilled Worker, it's 67 points, which includes your education, it includes your employment history, it includes your English scores, your adaptability, your age factors, etc. 67 points is to qualify for the Federal Skilled Worker, but Express Entry now is doing selection. So you go into a pool of candidates, and that express entry entails FST, which is Federal Skilled Trades, Federal Skilled Workers, and Canadian Experience Class candidates. And every 2 weeks, the Canadian government, it's like bingo. You get a number, okay? So it's bingo. Today, the score is going to be 477. Anybody with that score of 477 and above will be sent an invitation to apply. You're sent an invitation to apply. Within 60 days, you apply for your permanent residency. You upload your documents, your birth certificates, your education documents, your IELTS scores, etc. And they have said that within 6 months, processing will be done and you will come to Canada not as a worker, but as a permanent resident. There are times when you fall short of a few points. You may be short 20 points, 50 points. 50 points can be covered up with an offer of employment from a Canadian employer with an LMIA to support your permanent residency. So there are things coming to Canada to study, coming to Canada to work, coming to Canada to immigrate. As an accountant, you may, because of your skill set, education, and your language ability, you may not have to go through the work permit stages. You may directly be able to apply for your permanent residency.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'd like to move on to the next panelist, Vijay ji. Are you online? Hello, Mr. Vijay Gupta.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes. How are you doing, Mr. Vijay?
Good morning and good evening to everybody.
So Vijayji, you've understood the Canada landscape pretty well, and I think you're the best positioned among all of us to understand how does an Indian CA navigate his career into Canada. So let me ask a very basic, simple question. I'm an Indian CA, and is my Indian CA valid in Canada? And if not, how do I practice or how do I get employment there? You've seen this journey for literally hundreds of CAs in Canada, so why didn't you guide us?
As an Indian chartered accountant, you are good to go for a service. and industry. But as far as the public practice is concerned, you have to go for a CPA course here. Once you come here, you have to enroll it for it, and you have to pass it. And we have been able to do the MOU with CPA Canada. So it is now, if you prepare well, then it is a 6-month time you can pass that CPA examination, because you are only supposed to go for a CFE examination, that is a one examination at final level. You are exempted from your all modules, Capstone 1 and Capstone 2. But for enrolling that thing, you need a good standing from Institute of Chartered Accountant of India. That should be valid for 6 months. So you should plan like when you are coming, you get the good certificate from them, so that it is not expired, because sometimes it takes time, and if it expires, then it takes another 1 year time. And in that process, you lose the time, and living cost, hunting for job, and everything is very costly. But for career growth, it is very important that you come here and do the CPA, and then there is a lot of opportunities.
And what is an easy way to get a CPA in Canada?
The best easy way is to appear for the examination, because this is really very easy. For Indian Chartered Accountant, they have everything there. It is a case study. And the chapter is also supporting to all the students by way of tuitions, by way of like we are arranging the marker for them. And it is a 3-day course. And like we are also trying to basically create something in India also, so that the people in India can get basic course material and other things before they come here. So it is not as much difficult for us. There has been in past, there has been one course for the seniors, like that was a evaluation of experience. But with the merger of CPA Canada, all accounting body in CPA Canada, that course has now been discontinued. And that process, we have been talking to them, to the CPA, and Institute has also been in touch with them for getting that course rescheduled. Once it is rescheduled or it has been reintroduced, then Indian Chartered Accountant can get direct entry. With their, like they have to submit their credentials, and they have to submit that they have worked suitably, but still they have to work 2 years for that in the country under some chartered accountant. So it's the best way to go for the CPA examination, and that is only a one course, one examination.
Vijayji, there's one question that I've been asked, is that what is the honors CA qualification? Can that have an equivalency status like the NAIRC UK gives the RQF level 7, which is like equivalent to a master's degree? Can we have anything like that in Canada?
Yeah, in Canada, the Neeraji can basically highlight. There is a body where you have to go, that is called World Education Service. So they evaluate the education transcript for
the credential evaluation process.
A credential evaluation. And earlier they were not even treating the CA as a graduate. But now I came to know that they are now treating it as a postgraduate. But still we need to confirm it. Because some of the students, the problem is that if you have done the graduation in India, because there is a chartered accountancy can be done without even graduation. So if you have not done the graduation, you have done directly the chartered accountancy, then WES does not consider that. So for those who has done the graduation in India and chartered accountancy, in my opinion, what I understand, it is a post-graduation, but still we need to confirm, or Neeraji can also confirm on it.
Neera, are you aware of that? Is the CA qualification equivalent to master's degree by the credential evaluators?
So it depends, completely depends on the evaluator. The evaluator looks at the course, where the course has been taken, how long, what was the duration of your studies or of your degree. They take it as a Canadian equivalent. So it depends on the school that you've gone to, how long you've studied for. Is it an accredited school? Is it recognized? So all of that depends on where you have studied at the point. So when they're giving your equivalency, they look into all of that. And if it's not from a recognized school, it may not be recognized at all. And they may come back to you and say, it's a grade 12. Correct. So again, your equivalency depends on where you've studied, the duration of your studies, and was it accredited or from an accredited school or non-accredited. Completely depends upon that.
So from a US perspective, I know for a fact that the CA course is evaluated differently by different state boards. So your outcome when you get the CA degree qualification evaluated in the United States, the outcome may differ depending upon which state you are trying to get your registration done. So I fully understand the context that you might have your mileage may vary, as they say, with the degree.
The difference in Canada is we don't have it by state. We don't have it by province, sorry. We have a few bodies that do the credential assessment. Okay, there's about 4 bodies that Canada recognizes the credential assessment from. So one body or one may assess it a little bit differently from the other. So if one does not recognize it, sometimes I've applied to another one and the recognition comes. So again, it also depends upon where you're applying. Also, right? And you have to have it, the recognition and the assessment has to be done by appointed IRCC companies. You can't just have the credential assessment done by anybody. They have to be recognized. If you've had your credential assessed in the United States, it's not going to be valid in Canada. You'll have to do the assessment again.
Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. So I'm at the last question of the panel, and I'll turn back to Deepika on this. We've seen a lot of news right now about how there is transition in the United States in terms of the government. What does that really mean in terms of the immigration? I mean, you're close to the immigration landscape. So what are you seeing? Is immigration going to be easy to the United States? Is it going to be difficult? What do people should think about right now?
So the new government is, they are immigration pro. So they are going to work on a lot of new policies and kind of changing a lot of policies which Trump had made. Trump had actually banned all the H&Ls to enter the United States up to December 31st. So they are going to, they're going to make changes to all those policies which Trump had come up in the last 4 years. Nothing has happened yet. We do see changes happening next year. It is probably going to be a little more easier compared to what we've gone through in the last 4 years under this administration. So all I could say is we'll have to wait and watch and see what changes happen in all the policy makings by the new government administration. But what the new thing which we are seeing is they are more, they want to kind of work on the DACA and, DACA cases and the illegal immigrants, trying to give them citizenship and stuff. I've not heard anything happening to the H and the L front so far. But yeah, I'm sure there are a lot of policies which are right now in place through the Trump administration will have changes, but we'll have to just wait and watch.
We've heard of situations where the administration has been given and has followed a policy where they give preference to higher salaries while issuing H1. They've got policies whereby they give higher preference to somebody who's educated in the United States over somebody who's just educated in India. So do you expect those policies to continue, or do you think they will change?
So, those are very good questions, Nilesh. Why does a salary make a difference, right? So the H1B was kind of performed for, people who are skilled workers who are performing critical job duties in the United States and where you can't find a replacement. So obviously salary is inversely proportional with you can say directly proportional to the skill of work you're doing, right? So if you're doing a very skilled work, your salary also will go up higher, right? Because obviously the US employer is not able to find somebody who meets the same requirement or meets the requirement of the job offer. So obviously the higher salaries will help. The higher you are paid, it helps you to get through the H1B process. USCIS also evaluates that when adjudicating the cases. Recently, they did increase the FLC wage rates for all the H-1B workers for some of the sanctuary states. For example, New Jersey, New York, all the Bay Area states like, Santa Clara County and stuff like that. They did increase the FLC wages. There is a lawsuit right now which is going on for decreasing that and coming back to the normal, because obviously the employers are not able to afford 208 as the basic wage to pay to an H-1B worker. But this is all going to happen in the future. But salaries do make a difference when filing an H-1B. The higher you're paid, the chances of getting an approval is always there. Now, coming to the second option of the education, well, they did create something for specific US master's degrees students, because they wanted to give them an option. They were the students went through the whole this thing of education in the US, and they wanted to give them opportunity. So they did create a quota system for them, where they said that the lottery will have 20,000 seats only for the US masters, which was done on purpose, just so that they could retain these employees, these students for some extra time under OPT, and then eventually train them and explore them for future employment. So there is always an advantage of doing education in the US, because you've gone through the whole education system here. So that's not going to change. I don't think that's ever going to change. That's always going to be there.
The final question which I have for you, Deepika, and before we close out the panel, is how do I get my CA degree evaluated in the United States? I briefly touched upon it, but if you can share some more light into it as to how do I get it evaluated in such a way that it is considered equivalent to a master's degree?
So master's degree will be difficult. So as you know that US honors the 16 years of education. So as I understand, the BCom degree in India is just 3 years. And then you go to the ICAI associate membership program where you get the certificate. So when you evaluate the degree from India in the United States, it's going to be only a bachelor's degree. Now, we also use WES for our evaluations. The CPA board kind of uses that for evaluation purpose. So if you have a BCom degree and you've done your articleship and you've got the ICAI certificate, that's going to be equated to a bachelor's degree in the United States, which is good enough to file an H-1B, by the way. So you have to basically meet a bachelor's degree. The master's degree is only if you have like a 16-year of education from India. If you've done 16 years of education, then you might qualify for the master's degree in the US equivalent when you kind of equate it. But technically, the way the CA degree works in India and the way the CAs go through the education process, their degrees are usually evaluated as a bachelor's degree in the United States. Unless they come and do a US master's. If they do a US master's, then obviously they have a master's and they'll be considered as master's students. But other than that, it's always a bachelor's degree.
Okay. But the CA qualification in India is essentially 12 years plus 4 years, right? So there is a 16 years of education that a chartered accountant would go through. I mean, I'm talking about somebody who's completed his CA, not somebody who is pursuing a CA.
Right. So you know what, the EDGE database, what happens is when the education evaluations are done and when you go to one of these evaluation companies, they use the EDGE database, and USCIS also uses the EDGE database. For some reason, the education treaty between US and India for some degrees are still evaluated as bachelor's. So till EDGE doesn't change that to a 16-year education, you will not be able to get like a... So when it's a 16 years education, it's still a bachelor's degree, right? It's 12 plus 4. So it's still a bachelor's degree. When you talk about masters, the additional 2 years is a master's degree, right? In India, it's, when you do a graduation. So in order to do 16 plus 2, then you end up getting a master's degree. But if you're just doing the 16 years of education, it's still going to be considered as a bachelor's degree in the United States. And that's what EDGE follows. Unfortunately, we have to just be with that as a bachelor's,
Okay. I think we're running out of time, so I'll close the panel. This topic about education and credentials is very useful, and we probably will cover this once again in one of our next webcasts. But with this, I'd like to end and thank you, Deepika, Neera, and Vijayji for sharing your thoughts about the immigration and education landscape in the United States and Canada. I'd like to hand over the it's no.
Thank you, Nilesh. Good day, everyone. That first panel was a pretty extensive coverage of how people can move from one place to another. People can come to US, Canada, non-immigration and immigration. Now we are going to panel 2, where we are going to, some of the panelists. We have 4 eminent panelists here. How they have been able to orchestrate and enable this sharing of work globally in their respective businesses, and that is going to be the focus of the second panel. We are going to start this with the CA Hiren Modi. Hiren is a partner in the San Francisco office of Eisner Amper, and he is part of the audit practice. He's a partner in charge of Eisner Amper's India operations, and he's a member of Eisner Amper's executive committee. Eisner Amper has a partnership with Alenial Global, which is an association of accountants and consulting firms whose members exchange expertise, resources, and advice in a wide range of industries. So Hiren, can you tell us a little bit more about Alenial, and can you also tell us how Eisner Amper has leveraged this network?
Sudha, thank you for having me here at the panel. Very good evening to everyone who's joining from India, and very good morning for all my fellow chartered accountants from the US. Vish and Nilesh, thank you for all the great work that you have done along with Sudha at the ICAI San Francisco chapter. And it is amazing to see all the new chapters that have come along with all the efforts that the has put into this pandemic, and motivating all of us to to participate in events like that, like this, and continue working with our fellow chartered accountants and students. And last but not least, Mr. Vice President, my professor, if I'm sure you don't remember me, but I had the honor and opportunity to learn taxation from you in the late 90s. So it was great to see you after 25 years or so, and see your smiling face. That made my morning this morning today. Sudha, coming back to the question, a lot of the accounting firms in the United States, as well as in Europe and in other parts of the world, realized that as the businesses were growing global, it was important for them in order to compete in the global economy and in the global world, to have a reach across the globe. And this practice started around, at least about 2+ decades ago, where that need arose. So as the firms were developing their business and their practices, and they were looking to grow with their own clients, one common need that arose was, at different times, firms needing help in jurisdictions that were outside of their jurisdictions. In the United States, it started as the interstate commerce became very common. There are different state tax rules that apply from state to state, and so there was a need for a CPA who is in California to understand New York State tax rules. There's a need for somebody from Boston understand. That's where association of firm concept was born. Alenial Global is one of such association. Unlike Big Four accounting firms that have their own name throughout the world, smaller firms, more regional firms, and national firms prefer to be part of associations like Alenial Global, where it is an association of like-minded firms that come together. They're independent in their own jurisdiction. They don't share profits or resources, but where they share things is they have a platform where everyone can come together, share the knowledge, and they're available to help each other out. So we are, EisnerAmper is one of the largest accounting firm within the Alenial Global Network. We have about 236 member firms in the Alenial Network with about 600 locations in about 85 countries. And where we work together is if I need an assistance with a client in San Francisco who is looking to start an operations in India, and I'm doing an audit for that client in San Francisco, and I need certain transactions from India, either say inventory or whatever they may be doing. That's something that I can then reach out to my Alenial Global firm and say, can you do this piece of the audit on the ground for me, because I don't have the capabilities. There may be statutory requirements that EisnerAmper cannot perform in individual, then our Alenial partner would perform. Of course, if the client chooses to go that route. But it's a platform that brings all the firms together. It's a platform to exchange ideas. Over my last 20 years with my firm in auditing practice and public accountancy practice, I had the opportunity to meet with a lot of our other member firms and build relationships, not only in India, but throughout other countries where our clients have exposure within the practice that I service in my firm. There are events that Alenial Global to bring different practice leaders within time as to another a lot of the people that I met through Nexia are still the relationships that I have that my clients do business with, because that's what I started, we started 15 years ago. And so it's really building that network that as a independent firm in a particular geography you may not have throughout the world, and building those connections so that you could provide services to your clients that otherwise you would not have provided, and really helping the clients with either multi-state needs or helping them with the global needs. I heard the panel before, we talked about US and Canada. I lead my firm's broker-dealer audit practice, and many of my broker-dealer clients generally end up next step after they have established themselves in US is to have operations in Canada, and the regulatory authority equivalent of SABI or SEC in the United States is IROC, and there are firms within Canada that I've worked with who are a phone call away. When I get a phone call from a client saying we're ready to go to the next level, and we're either starting in operations in Canada, and I immediately make the next phone call is to our member firm in Canada to help with the IROC application. So that's where the associations come helpful, come handy. It's the expertise in the local area that helps a member firm propel into and help them grow.
Very good, very good. When you are dealing with global businesses, you definitely need those partners with that expertise. Just a follow-up, Hiren. Again, taking the analogy of AWS that says that they provide an elastic cloud that when you need to expand, you can just easily expand. I have heard that some of these networks also, because we all have the tax season, right, where we really, in a very short time, we have a time crunch and need to do a lot of work. Do you have any elastic resources that you guys share in the network that during your crunch time, others are coming to your help and vice versa?
Yeah, it depends from firm to firm and region to region. Back in 2001, when I was a young staff accountant at the firm, we had within our association, we had a very, very strong secondment program that worked. And in Eisner-Amper, we have 200 partners right now, but within the San Francisco office where I am based out, we have 12 partners, and two of my partners that are with me today come from the secondment arrangements that we had with other firms, back in early 2000s. So they came over for secondment. Somehow maybe they liked working with me, and over time we built a relationship, and they're now partners at the firm. And so there is a very common trend of secondment that goes on within the networking firms, be it Alenial Global, be it Nexia, be it other network that exist. There are several of them that exist, and secondment is a very common trend within those firms. In terms of outsourcing, offshoring, sharing of resources differs from firm to firm as to what is the expectation. There are some firms that would do it. There are some firms that would do it in a different way. But there are opportunities, for those. It's really the first step of all of it is really bringing, kind of like two like-minded firms together, and making sure that there is a connection.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And the reason we just want to understand this, because you are a fairly big firm, and we just want to understand how these networks work so that our members can understand the value of it, and then, they can decide to be building their own networks. So thanks, Hiren. Thanks for highlighting all of that. We now go to the next panel speaker, CA Vijay Gupta. You already heard him in the first panel. He's the CEO of Capitals, and he's also the founding chairman of the British Columbia chapter of ICAI. When we started in San Francisco 3 years ago, Mr. Vijay Gupta provided a lot of support to us. both administrative help and moral support. And Vijay Gupta ji, you got us running, and we haven't stopped running yet. So thank you for all your help. So coming in today's panel, Mr. Gupta ji is going to share some of the insights on how global accountants can think out of the box and can work together. And he's now also going to highlight how the ICAI network can be leveraged and how he has leveraged that. Gupta ji, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Sudha. It has been your efforts to bring the chapter into this high level. We are very small in numbers in Vancouver, and yours numbers are very high. And seeing your offices and other things, my best wishes to the team for this wonderful work. Thanks all the panelists, president and vice president. I will, before coming to your question, I would like to briefly go for a business opportunities and professional opportunities that are available for Indian CA in Canada because of the main topic. So, as like I always say, we belong to a very noble profession. This profession has given us social recognition, status. And Indian chartered accountants are known as the best accountant in the world. And recently, our president has also highlighted that the skill development is very necessary for becoming a global accountant. And for becoming a global accountant, we need to create a synergy amongst ourselves. We are present in all over the world. So I will come across in that way that how we are going to do it. But given the time and other things, I will like very briefly to take the first part in 3 sessions. So the young members who are willing to come to Canada should prepare well before immigrating, as it is extremely costly for hunting job and studying at the same time. They should go for a soft skill training, create a LinkedIn profile, obtain good knowledge of software, Excel and other things, other accounting software, and be prepared to adopt the cultural changes which they are going to face here. Last year, we have got around 60 newcomers in Vancouver, and it has been very hard process for us to establish them in various jobs. We have created panels, we have created mentorship, we have created among our members, they have adopted few members, every members, to brief them how the work goes. So, and also, unless they pass, as I earlier said, the CPA examination, their career is not very good. So they have to also go for the career. Chapter is giving all help, but still we need that the members to Canada should prepare themselves. They should get in check, whether it is San Francisco or Vancouver, they will help it. For the firms who are exploring professional opportunities to diversify, there are various opportunities available here, and the opportunities are available in litigation and audit support for outsourcing, and commercial insurance and loss accounting, corporate payroll, and cloud bookkeeping. But they need to associate, they need to form a network, as Hirenji said, with local firms or a local network for getting these type of opportunities, so that they are aware of the local laws, rules, regulations, and they have somebody to represent them here. And here, the chartered accountant and CPA firm need the outsourcing. They need somebody back end to support them. So this is a very good opportunity. For professionals who wish to start the business here, like they are a senior, they have money, and they want to come here, This Canada West Coast connect the Asia Pacific region with North America, providing easy and fast, reliable access to the market. It offers modern, cost-effective connections to the global transportation and communication system. The Pacific zone overlaps major commercial zones, just like you, and allowing convenient communication and scheduling. So right now in Vancouver and in British Columbia, there is a very good opportunities in information technology, plane technology, digital media and life science, and emerging. These are the emerging industries here. And prominent global companies have made history here. And new ones are opening day by day. So our chartered accountant who has business interest in these fields, they can very easily come here. And British Columbia business pays around corporate tax is around 27%, and which is the lowest among G7. There are various credits, and the credits are genuine. It is not that they are available here and the people. The credits, whatever credit the government has mentioned, they are going to get it. So these are the industry which are upcoming, and the chapter and other professionals who are in practice here, they will certainly help the people. Coming to your question. So I started my accounting practice in 1986. Until 2000, I was in traditional accounting practice like taxation, audit, and company law. In 2000, I joined a firm that is called Swedrup Civil. And suddenly that firm was taken over by Jacobs Engineers. I was the head, Asia head. And the culture did not match. Like Swedrup and Jacobs' culture was totally different. Because they were on mechanical field, we were in infrastructure side. So like most of the expert and staff resigned. And even the CMD resigned, and I was one of them. So then we started our own consulting firm in 2001. And that consulting firm was working on infrastructure, civil engineering, finance, and other things. And at that time, the experience was not bad. So we prefer to have joint venture with the international firms. And international firms, with the joint venture of international firms, we got various projects in India. And subsequently, we moved to Afghanistan, then Iran, then Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and today that company has more than 500 employees. And we have our presence in 7 countries. So our association was, it was a network, but it was the association of a convenience. Whenever there was project, we came into association, and this only not increases our capacity. This also increases the capacity of the international firms. Some of the international firms which do not have the presence in that country or in India, they got the presence in that country. Simultaneously, we started one financial consultancy also. That was for the BOT projects. Like to making the global accountant, we need to diversify other than our traditional practice. For traditional practice, there are various networks. But for these type of infrastructure services, for information technology services, there are not so many networks. So we need to create the network based on the project, and every project is different. It is not the defined practice is not there. You have to create your partnership based on the projects. So we have created that finance company, and it was only by a chartered accountant. There was no engineers, and we started the consultancy as a public-private partnership consultant. And then suddenly we find that there are more opportunities, like there was opportunities for lenders engineer, because the lenders, the banks who provide the funds to the contractor, they need a company who has a financial capability as well as technical capability. So if we add some technical partner as a financial capacity, we can execute this work. So we did that thing. Then the safety audit, economic feasibility study in various sectors. There was a smart city. They came on the BOT. And with this COVID-19, there are a lot of work is coming for the public-private partnership because the government need money and the chartered accountant can contribute a lot. So our focus, like we have our presence worldwide, we have more than 40 chapters and we have expertise in everywhere. If we have expert, there are international firms who are going to go in that firm, that country. So our focus should be to make a flexible joint ventures consortium with the help of chartered accountant. And recently, we came to know that there is a very good project in Tanzania, and that was international bidding. And it was for the BOT project as well as mobilization resources to fund the projects in Tanzania. Then I contacted with Tanzania counterpart. We came to know that they are eager to go on these consulting part. We make an MOU. And that chartered accountant firm, with this, we have the qualification. They have the local presence. With these two resources, we are, without going to Tanzania, we will be able to execute this project. Once this project is completed, they will have experience and we have international experience. So with the network, with the CA network worldwide, we need to associate each other for these type of upcoming opportunities to make them global accountant. If you have in San Francisco, you have an IT technology, there are a lot of chartered accountants who can do the startup. So these type of network is very important, which we can do. So my submission, the professional network is just like muscles. The more you exercise it, the stronger it gets, and more you can expand. With more than 40 chapters, you need to associate each other, understand their qualification, their experience, and attend the projects.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. We know that as chartered accountants, we basically come well trained, and you have highlighted that we don't need to necessarily stay in the core areas, but we can expand into other areas, and we can even become, business people. Thanks for that perspective, Vijay Gupta ji. Next, we go to our speaker, CA Sanjay Gaggi. Sanjay is the founder CEO of ICAI Services Private Limited. The company provides virtual and shared CFO services to Indian and global clients. With diverse management, finance, and business experience of 25 years, the firm has developed expertise in implementing best practices for F&A, strategic business plans, raising funds, initiating growth, and executing business transformation. Today, Sanjay is going to share the current trends, the changing mindset of accepting remote work due to COVID, and the technological environment that is all contributing to scale this kind of remote CFO service. Sanjay, off to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Sudha. Thanks, Nilesh. It's a great pleasure to have this panel. And thanks, President of our Institute and Vice President for inviting us. And it is great to hear the entire conversation around opportunities which Indian Chartered Accountants has across US and Canada. And it is more so that today in an environment where the new concept is emerging, the work from anywhere. I mean, this is something which we never heard about it, but this is what the lot of hashtags which we keep hearing around this thing. So the world is not only just a very small world, but equally effective in the magical world of technology in which we are living today. So I think just to start with, when we started the CFO services in India, our objective was to address this requirement for the small and medium enterprises. In 2010, the CFO services was a very new concept altogether in India. And there were very few initial players like me and others we started. And obviously, at that point of time when I launched, I didn't opted for any kind of office setup or those kind of thing. And, I told my friend that, look here, I'm just going to operate with three things. One is laptop, the mobile, and the internet. And they were all wondering that what I'm going to do with this kind of thing. But having said this, I think the world is real virtual, the world is real remote. I see today the CFO services is getting into a lot of segmentation across India and across globe. In US, the CFO services are as old as about 25 years old. And some of the biggest firms of CFO services providers are having about 200 partners, which many of us have not even heard about those kind of firms operating in India. So this is the kind of a market which we are addressing to the SMEs of the world through CFO services. And why we say CFO services are different than a practicing chartered accountant or a practicing CPA of the world. Because as a CFO, I mean, you are basically hand-holding the operating finance. When I say operating finance, it's a different world altogether. And today, with the help of the automation, the technology, the robotic process automation, I think we are definitely getting into a complete revamping the way the work is being getting executed, the way the cost of finance function itself is being monitored across the management in terms of the control over this back office in terms of deliverable and as well as the strategic input which they are expecting from the CFOs of the world. So having said this, I think some of the idea which I would like to throw about, especially for the remote part, is that many of the practicing chartered accountants in India are gathering avenues to figure it out, new avenues, new opportunities. One of the interesting things which is now catching up is an offshoring. Offshoring obviously it's a very old concept in India. It is just that with the technology and the cloud coming in, it is taking up a new shape altogether. And I think when for example, I just would like to start with some of the offshoring of CPA's work coming from US to India. What we need to address is that how those kind of what we call the skill which is available in India and the technology which is obviously we have a kind of a new ways to tackle it. That is what we need to leverage through an offshoring of CPA work back to India. And there are these kind of firms which are being operated right now in metros as well as in just not in metros but in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So there's a big opportunity for many of chartered accountants, many of the CFO services providers in India to take this opportunity with the kind of skill and the technology which is available. Obviously, one of the big driver for offshoring is the cost part. But let me just emphasize that today the CPAs firms in the USA are also figuring out the differentiating approach, how they make a difference to their engagement with the client, how they can add more strategic value to their client in the business. So therefore, to that extent, the cost is one part of the outsourcing. The other segment, which is the differentiating, how they can make a differentiation. And therefore, the offshoring is now coming into a big way. I would like to say that what are the key pillars of offshoring? And I have just summarized in a 5 T's, what I call typically the key pillars of offshoring work, which can be leveraged effectively by the CPAs or the CFO services firms in the USA with the help of the Indian chartered accountants or the Indian CFO services. And these 5 T's are, in a very brief, one is the takeover. How do you actually acquire, or how do you get into an engagement in terms of acquiring these CPA firms with the help of your front office in the US. The other part is, how do you transition? So here comes the second T. The third T is obviously the training. The training component becomes very powerful and very important tool to understand the entire methodology of current way of working in the US and how they take this piece to India through a structured training program with properly automation of processes around that. So third pillar is training, and the fourth is what I typically call is a technology. Again, the technology is a key lever to transform this entire offshoring back to India with a remote kind of an operations. And the fifth part is the transformation. Now, this transformation is an ongoing process. I mean, as you leverage the work with the help of your entire module at the CPA and in terms of their value to their client, and the transformation happens in terms of skill building and in terms of career planning for the people who are actually delivering this work from India. So these five key pillars, in a way, summarizes the entire component of offshoring by the Indian chartered accountants and the Indian CFO firms effectively with the help of, with the close partnership with the US or the Canada or UK, wherever they are, I mean in Singapore, those kind of remote work effectively. And that's how we can leverage in a very nutshell. Obviously, the risk mitigation part is a very important tool in terms of security, in terms of your firewalls, in terms of your encryptions and those kind of technology. And one need to understand those nitty-gritties because you are dealing with very sensitivity information around the client of the CPAs or the client of CFO service. And therefore, to that extent, that becomes a very important in area to address by the parties. And the second part is business continuity planning. That becomes a very important and very significant portion of the contract. What happens in case something goes wrong. And then there are a lot of other metrics like performance metrics. There is a KPI. There is a billing metrics which one need to monitor on a regular basis to effectively leverage this remote working. Yeah. So I think I will just summarize in this fashion that there is a great opportunity for everyone to work in a very close fashion. And I'm sure that this offshoring is going to shoot up with the work from anywhere kind of things coming into play. Yeah.
Very nicely summarized, Sanjay. You correctly said that when we think of offshoring, we think it is just first a cost advantage predominantly. But this virtual CFO service has the capability to offer so much more, better service, and to the people that are not able to, especially the SME companies that cannot have their own full-fledged CFOs. We can just give them better service. And then India also has, the advantage of being technology leaders. So when we were earlier exploring, even in the BPOs today they took the job to get the cost reduction, but they are now the biggest drivers driving RPA and AI and everything. They have embraced technology and they are giving better output to the customer. And there are so many, different ways this virtual CFO service can, pan out to. Thanks for that. And we have the last speaker, CA Tanmay Chaudhary. And Tanmay is the co-founder of ARightCo, a company providing A to Z accounting finance services from transactional to CFO service. And they're also providing HR services. His clients are mostly small, medium enterprise businesses, startups in the US. And Tanmay is also the CFO of Nexient LLC. So Tanmay today is going to share very interesting, his own firm's experience of how a Silicon Valley company that started providing all these finance accounting services beginning on site, how that changed over the years. And he was able to leverage the talent pool in India And he also going to say how if when that offshore center reached a certain level of maturity, he's again able to leverage that model and use that talent to bring them back on site. So I will stop talking and have Tanmay do the rest of the talking about his company. Tanmay?
Yeah, good morning, Sudha. Greetings to all, to the president, vice president of the institute, as well as all of you here in the United States and Canada. I started my career, obviously in India, came here in 2000, and in 2008 or 2009, I think I co-founded this company just out of sheer panic. If you all of you remember that 2007-8, where the world was going to end, almost the financial world as we know. So we thought that maybe we get into from industry we'll get into business. So we just started in our garage, like most of the other Silicon Valley startups. We had couple of mentors in venture fund, a couple of venture fund which helped us initially, and we started helping some of the startups in their accounting and financial management process. And over a period of time, we realized that if we have an offshore leverage, we would help some other companies who are more cost conscious. At that time, value at that time, at that point of time, the qualification, how the offshore resources would be, did not strike us. So in 2014-15, we started, through a contractor in Gujarat. We started, we subcontracted or rather outsourced some of our function to them, very specific, functions like, AR, AP invoicing, which are the basic data entry functions there. And fast forward in 2018, we started our own company out of Calcutta. I am from actually Calcutta, or Kolkata as we say now. And we started our company. Right from, for a long time, we had a lot of issues initially regarding the quality, then high turnover. But of late, in the last couple of years, or I would say that last 18 months, what we have seen is that we are getting a significantly better quality people in India. So over a period of time, what we have seen is that, right from a basic data entry approach, my India resources have gone into working as a kind of, even a couple of them working as a controller, or even, interacting directly with our clients. I mean, before, all the direct interaction used to be only with our on-site managers or on-site partners, as some of the other panelists told. But now some of the offshore employees, we are getting the quality is so good. The training has been, they have been directly interacting with the clients. And, what was our plan in late 2019 was to bring some of them over here for, short term on a B1 visa to, meet and greet with the client, understand the client better, understand or the meet, the on-site managers, and, so that, they are more, adapted or, with the US scenarios. COVID came and, we had our problems, but the plan is still there. And as soon as, early 2021 or whenever we are able to do it, we would be bringing, we start bringing them over here. So in our view now, it's not only the offshore, but also offshore on-site collaboration, right, that we are looking at. So previously, we used to feel that offshore is only for data entry, for low-level job. But now what we see is that the offshore can actually complement on-site. I think that's the biggest lesson that we have got in our company over the period of time. How it has happened? It has happened mainly because of we have created integrated training. So anybody joins in our offshore team, goes through 2 to 6 weeks of training, where they get training in all kind of tools that we use, the AP tools, AIR tools, financial accounting. We also use tools on, providing dashboard, or MIS as in India we used to call. We also, even the email etiquettes, as low as email etiquette, like, when you're writing an email to your on-site manager or a client, how do you write an email? I mean, that also, that training imparts. And that's what I think has helped our offshore folks to, get into a kind of complementary function to our on-site people. Because remember one thing, when you are getting offshore accountants, and who are, some of them are chartered accountants, some of them are MBA, cost accountants, some of them are studying, they actually know accounting. That's for sure. Is that how do you leverage the tools, and how do you leverage, their ability, and then complement the on-site resources? That was our challenge. And that, I think, over the past 12 to 18 months, more than 12 months, 18 to 24 months, I would say, we have been able to leverage it much better through all these tools and training functions. So yeah, to summarize, we believe that it's not only the work can go offshore, but also going forward for our on-site people. We are a small company. We have around 30 people on-site and around 35 in offshore. We believe that, going forward, to get people on site, we can have actually two funnels. Till date, we used to always take on-site people from on-site, which is basically, we are talking of lateral hire. Now we believe that, in fact, some good offshore employees that we have, we can actually hire them as H-1B or L-1 possibly visas, and we can bring them over a period of time. Because I personally feel that, if those guys actually, they already know how the way we work, they already know that how the clients behave, they already know that how the US environment, so they possibly will be as good as a lateral hire, in some cases possibly better than that. So that's our view.
Thank you very much, Tanmay. So now we are coming to the close of this panel discussion. I really want to thank all the 4 speakers who just came and who really spoke to our audience, what they are seeing, what really they are doing in their businesses. So some closing thoughts now. This event was intended to showcase some of these successful and evolving models of global engagement for our highly specialized finance and accounting domain. The San Francisco chapter itself is a nonprofit and does not engage in any commercial activity or marketing of services. However, we hope that the global network of CAs will be able to learn from these models and come together and form their own partnerships and their own networks and be able to generate some new business. That is our hope and our wish for this event. We want to do a brief update of the ICAI expansion happening in US. Give me 1 second. I wanted to share a screen with you. So this is our ICAI North America map that is looking as of December 2020. We will be having about 12 locations. We are going to have, this will be comprising of 3 chapters, the San Francisco, the New York, and the recently inaugurated Houston chapter. We have representative offices, and some of these representative offices are really growing, even though they all started during COVID and have really not been able to see each other and come together. There's a lot of energy, many of them having 100 members already working and developing programs actively. So we have some of the representative offices already inaugurated and a few coming up for inauguration. So we will have Florida, Atlanta, New Jersey, and Seattle coming up for inauguration. And we are also very excited that we will be having the national office in San Francisco. Also, I want to mention that we have in Canada 2 of the chapters, the Vancouver chapter and the Toronto chapter. So that has been some expansion. We are really able to leverage some of the specific locational advantages. For example, the RO in DC, Washington, DC, is having access to all, because they are close to all the political, arena. They are able to network with ambassadors. They have a certain characteristic. The one in New England also have done great job. There are a lot of educational institutions. We are really working with them, being able to leverage some of the educational aspects, and we will be announcing and bringing those programs shortly. So that is an update. Let me do the stop. I want to just share the contact information of the panel as I'm doing the thank you. We really want to thank the president, vice president, who asked us to do this kind of an information exchange. And we want to thank all the members who attended virtually this event and all the panelists who were very kind and who shared a lot of detail with you today. But as we are doing that, we want to also say that this was just meant to be an information sharing. As Nilesh mentioned earlier, I want to reiterate that this is not meant to be some legal or financial or any kind of business advice. If you are planning on engaging in any of that, you will have to consult your own experts. Before I end, I have to quickly thank our sponsors. They are the ones that keep our lights on. So we want to thank our gold sponsors, Sanjay Gupta, CPA, Eisner Amper, Anand Bhuvan, our silver sponsors, Chug LLP, and the bronze sponsors, AppRap, Real Comply, Harshwal, Bhatia and Company, A-Right-Go. Thank you, sponsors. And with that, we will conclude the event. And I want to just quickly display. I'm having a little difficulty in displaying.
You want me to do that, Sudha?
Yeah, displaying the contact list so that if any of the audience wants to wish, if you have it, or give me 1 second.
I'll do it.
Are you able to share your screen, Nilesh?
I am trying to do that.
Nilesh, I got it. So this is the contact information for all of our panelists. Thank you, everyone. We will be ending the event now, and you all have a wonderful rest of the day. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.